This form of motorsports is no monolith. The men and women who dabble in manufactured atmosphere on uneven soil are not alone on this playing field. Those who prefer a more factory form of horsepower are often seen as the working class heroes of the competition. Our 2022 MRA coverage continues from Dixie. DT's Dirt Drags welcomes the naturally aspirated machines to the line tonight in the form of the Pro Stocks and the Super Stocks. Fans of the factory form of this action should be right in their element tonight as we take a look at the points coming into this evening with the Supers. You can see it's Clayton Olcott up on top with 520 points, followed very closely, though, 10-point gap between himself and Jason Hoskins, who is also in the field tonight. Here you see David French in the brand new Repercussion Jeep out of Ripley, West Virginia, coming out to qualify. And there you see Jason Hoskins' machine coming out onto the track. His father, Jerry Hoskins Sr., will be doing the driving tonight. They are out of Rising Sun, Indiana. You see Jason getting Jerry staged up. 643 cubic inch big block Chevy on stock leaf springs going side by side with David French with that 600 cubic inch big block Ford built by VZ Racing Engines with a Power Glide transmission. See what they have here as they get ready to set the stage on 200 feet of Southern clay. The record time in this class is a 2.994. Remember, this is the only heads-up class in the MRA. They will qualify, and then they will set pairs for round one. French going to get the better of those two times at a 3.18 with a 1. Jerry Hoskins at a 3.32 with a 5. So French will put up the early fast time. Here comes Daniel Carehair out of Spalding, Nebraska. Troublemaker. We saw him in our modified class on our last edition of our MRA coverage. And here's the 96 S10 of Clayton Olcott, also out of Nebraska, out of Burwell, place of many races on this tour. We'll see if either of these guys can jump over David French in qualifying. Olcott to the line first, a 3.20 with a 5 to a 3.33 for Carehair. So French will maintain the number one spot. Stay with us when we come back. The Pro Stocks hit the track.
This Back Channel Productions program is brought to you in part by Monsters Monthly. For up-to-date info, media, and all your other monster truck needs, visit monstersmonthly.com. And by Crush This. For a look inside the world of monster trucks, check out Crush This, a Monster Truck podcast. This Back Channel Productions program is brought to you in part by RPM Army. For a wide array of content from across the motorsports world, visit rpmarmy.com. Your high-performance fix on the go.
We continue action tonight without power adders here at Gore Springs. DT's Dirt Drags with the track grooming going on. We're going to take a quick look at the points coming into our Pro Stock division as they'll be hitting the track here in a moment. You can see Jesse Brown right now on a dominant streak at 580 points, leading the field to Greg Booker, who was here in Gore Springs but sustained some damage in our OPS class, so he will not run tonight. He headed back to Missouri. He'll also lose attendance points by leaving Rodney Merritt, Rick George, and Sam Lombazio round out the top 5. Rick George rolling out of Franklin, Georgia in Shag Nasty. Good to see him back on the track as he had some problems last time we saw him out in Steelville, Missouri. He's going side by side with David Kurtz out of Loudonville, Ohio in Mo Muddy. 87 CJ7 with a 632 cubic inch big block Chevy. Side by side there with Rick George, 707 cubic inch John Conkle Chevrolet power plant in that one. Kurtz was away quick, but it will be Rick George, a 2770. Setting the fast time early, and that's going to be a tough one to get around. Keep in mind the record in this class at 200 feet was set by Rick Nagley in Hicksville, Ohio in 2016 at a 260. So Rick George working to close in on that time. They're always shooting for records, even though they're going for the money on the track. If you can set a record, that means you won the class. Here comes your points leader, Jesse Brown, now in Loose Cannon, going side by side with Don Cato, trying to get himself back in the hunt right now. Tennessee Chevrolet looking good on that run at 280. Not going to get him to the top spot, but a close pair of runs at 283 for Don Cato. Look at Brown pick up the front end, bouncing around a little bit here in this left lane. It looks like the lane may be going away. There's some ruts developing there on the starting line as the track is drying out on top. Still has some moisture down on the bottom, so these guys are having to navigate that starting line. Now, a guy we don't know much about, one of the locals. This is Paxton Kelly in a beautiful 70s Chevrolet called John Gotti. Saw this guy run in the local classes earlier tonight. Having to do a little driving there at the end as he came over to the left-hand side of the track, a 363. Not going to get him to the top of the field, but nice loud run, keeping the crowd warm here tonight on a humid evening here in Mississippi. Again, look at him working the track as he gets into some of those ruts, starts pulling him off to the left-hand side here as the suspension unloads. Coming out of the local classes, coming over and running with the big boys. Right now as our next machine pulls out, this is Rodney Merritt in Disturbed out of Gore, Colorado. Big block Chevrolet. Nice straight pass for him there, a 3.31. Also not going to get him to the top of the field. In fact, that will put him, I believe, into the 5th place spot right now as Rick George leads early with that 2.77, followed by Jesse Brown, Don Cato, David Kurtz, and Rodney Merritt. We head back to the line now with the Super Stock division. There you see Daniel Carehair out of Spalding, Nebraska. Mentioned that thing earlier, a 1993 Ford F-150. See what he can do against David French with that massive VZ race engine. 600 cubic inches against a 632 cubic inches. Pair of Ford-powered machines on the line here. The heaviest of these two, though, is going to be Carehair with that full-sized pickup. French was coming on him at the end, but he wasn't able to get around. A 3.30, so Carehair with the slower time still got to the finish line first. So French trying to drive around him there at the end. Carehair got him with the reaction time. He was first away and first to the finish line. The big blue Ford out of Nebraska moves on to the championship race in the Super Stock division. Who will he face? Clayton Olcott, your points leader, or Jerry Hoskins driving for his son Jason Hoskins here tonight in your nightmare? Pair of Chevrolets. We have one Ford into the final round. We'll get one Chevrolet. We will have a Ford Chevy championship shootout here in the Super Stock division. 643 cubic inches in the far lane. Very close on the end. Olcott at a 325 had to drive around Hoskins at the end. Jerry putting just a little bit of a hole shot on him. It looks like not very much. Olcott having to come back around him at the finish line. You can see how close it was as they came through the banners at the end. Daniel Carrera coming back to the line now for the championship shootout. The full-sized Ford pickup against the little blue S10. These guys paired off in qualifying. Look at the ruts that they are driving through as they line up. Olcott coming all the way over to the left-hand side of the track, in fact, to try to get out of those ruts. We'll see. Will it be a hole shot or brute power that wins this thing as they pre-stage, they'll light the tree and wait on green. Carrera taking the victory with the hole shot on Clayton Olcott. A beautiful bunch of runs out of the big Ford from Nebraska. So he's having a pretty good weekend so far. Did fairly well in the modified class and just picked up a big money win here in the Super Stocks on the MRA Tour. All the way down in Dixie. He's far from home, but he laid down a shot and paid off for him as he knocks out the points leader.
Troublemaker looked good out there. You were flying.
Yeah, it's a whole different setup this year, so it was nice to see him come out and get a first place tonight. The left lane was probably a little bit quicker tonight. It just happened to be we got lined up where we could run the rut, and I don't know, it always seemed to hook up a little bit better when they'd let us go in a little bit.
And you have another car that'll be running on our next edition. How's this new car doing for you?
It's a blast. Shane and Scott racing the dirt built us for it this year, and first race was Burwell, and they've helped us make a lot of improvements, and it's just been an awesome time.
Hey, welcome to Wild Man Adventures. First the Silver Lake Sand Dragway. There really wasn't any off-roading back then. It was all off-road. We're on our way to Lima, Ohio. Got wooden wheels.
Oh, it's slippery as all get out of.
Hey, we're here with Rich Cummins. Hey, we're here with Mike Potter. Hey, we're here with Alan Pizzo. Gotta check it out. This week we're going to go down memory lane.
Back at DT's Dirt Drags as action continues under the lights. We've already had a couple of vehicles run in Pro Stock Session 2. One of those was Rodney Merritt in Disturbed. Did not better his Session 1 time, was going after his own 3.313. Ran a 3.38 in that one. Braxton Kelly came back to the line, and unfortunately, all that bouncing on the starting line as he put the horsepower to the ground. The clock's read 0. So he was not able to get a second session time, but I doubt he would have done much better than he did in round 1 with the problems he had coming off the start. Rick George leading the class right now at a 2.77, and it's your points leader Jesse Brown at a 2.80, Don Cato at a 2.83, and then we see David Kurtz and Rodney Merritt in the 3-second range. We'll see if David Kurtz can speed things up and move up the ladder, and we'll see if this guy can as well. Don Cato out of Advanced Missouri. That Tony Bischoff Ford power plant going side by side with the man, as I said, was points leader Jesse Brown out of Waverly, Tennessee. Loose cannon. Big block Chevrolet, 715 cubic inches. Machine co-owned by Rocky Brown. Side by side with the big Ford Hemi 632 cubic inch engine of Don Cato, who's smoking a little bit out of the right side of that machine, or at least it looks like that in the light. Definitely some smoke rolling out from underneath of that vehicle, so we'll see if he has any problems on the run. Chevrolet and Ford, Chevy body and Jeep body here in Pro Stock Session 2, Brown and Cato. Cato with a late leave, but he was moving when he came through the flags. A 2.93, though, not going to improve his time, and neither will Jesse Brown at a 2.86. Again, I believe the track may be going away. They're not getting the jump off the start they were in Session 1. In the meantime, though, we caught up right before this with Rick George, who's leading the class.
Rick George leading in Pro Stock with this vehicle. How's the truck feeling tonight? I know you had some problems coming out of Missouri, and the Rogies helped you get it back together. How's the truck running tonight?
Oh, it's running pretty good. It made a pretty good pass that first time, and hoping that time will hold. But if it don't, we'll see if we can get any more to give it this time.
All right, we know they're about to send you guys back onto the track, so we'll let you get to it.
All right, thanks, sir.
So there'll be one more pass in this division, and it will be Rick George and David Kurtz. But we're hearing that George may be opting to scratch this round as he's leading the field and does not believe that Kurtz is going to be able to get around him. So we'll see if that 2.770 holds up. Could be risking it here. He lets David Kurtz go down the track solo. Back end bouncing as he came through the flags. David Kurtz at a 3.02. In that round, will put himself in 4th place. So there you see the final standings here in the Pro Stock division. Rick George at a 2.77, followed by Jesse Brown, and that will help Brown remain in the number 1 spot in points. You see Rodney Merritt, though, and Rick George have jumped over Greg Booker, who missed out on even attendance points. That would have been an extra 5 points to his total. And Don Cato moving up into the top 5. Stay with us. We will be back with more action from here in Gore Springs. Welcome back to Gore Springs, Mississippi, DT's Dirt Drags. Still one more class to go here on this edition. Usually wrap things up for the evening with the Renegade class. If you haven't seen these guys before, we haven't featured them before. You'll see a mix of vehicles from the Pro and Super Stock divisions run here. David French, 632 Ford going side by side with the big block Chevy of Rick George. A little bit more money on the line. They're going to go for it. David French wheelies out of the hole. Lays down a 2.96. Rick George with a 2.83. As Braxton Kelly comes back to the line in the bright blue Chevrolet. John Gotti. A little bit of steam coming off the top of the engine there. It's very humid out here tonight, by the way. It's still very hot. But these machines seem to be making the horsepower, although, as I've said, the starting line is going away. He goes side by side with David Kurtz in Mo Muddy out of the state of Ohio. So let's see if the local can knock down the big CJ7. Kurtz was quick, shooting for a 2.83. 3.08 for Kurtz and a 3.80 for Kelly. Another look at the run, and watch these guys get bounced around. Kelly was all over the track. David Kurtz nice and straight right through there, but still not going to be fast enough to get either of those guys past Rick George. And if I know George, he is probably going to scratch this next session, as the same two vehicles will come right back around, swap lanes, and do it again. There you see Braxton Kelly back on the starting line, battling with the ruts a little bit there in that big heavy Chevy. On side by side with the Chevy powered CJ7, David Kurtz out of Loudonville, Ohio. This machine took 2 years for he and Tim Rush and Steve Brown to complete. Now out here competing on the MRA Series, a beautiful CJ7 out of Ohio against a beautiful Chevrolet from right down the road, one of the locals, Braxton Kelly. You can get that bouncing to stop. You might be able to get a little bit more time out of that big blue Chevrolet. Again, a nice straight pass for Kurtz, a better pass for Kelly. See if the time was better there, a 3.76 to a 3.12. So Kurtz gave up a little bit of time. Kelly sped up a little bit there in the right-hand lane. It seems like the left lane going away very, very quickly as our final competitor rolls out, David French from Ripley, West Virginia, in Repercussion, the Ford-powered Jeep. Final pass of the evening. Shooting for a 2.83. He will not get past it. A good run for French, but a 2.96 will not get him into that number one spot. So you can see it's Rick George at a 2.83, David French, David Kurtz, and Braxton Kelly rounding out the four-truck field.
Rick George taking the win. Long road to get there. Some of the problems you had with this thing out in Missouri. What went wrong out in Missouri?
Well, the truck was, I just had bought the truck then. That was my first outing with it, and just had some stuff that just needed to be addressed, and we got it straightened out.
And you caught it right before it would have been a major problem, I remember.
Yes. We caught it just in the nick of time, and we got it back together, and things been going well.
Yeah, it seems like this truck got you down the track here. It didn't look bad, no PS, and just up from here, I guess. Hopefully we can keep this momentum up throughout the rest of the year.
Yes, that's the plan. It don't always work out that way, though.
Well, congratulations on the victory, and we'll see you down the road.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Well, as the lights continue to glow here at DT's Dirt Drags, it will wrap up this edition of our MRA coverage, but we're not quite done from here in Gore Springs. The mods and the opens have to go down the track one more time, as the mods will put on the cuts and the opens will put on the paddles, blower motors, and nitrous injected action coming your way. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time.